Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to your June forecast. Thank you for your patience. I know these readings are coming out much later than normal. The good news is that whenever you are watching, you get to take a look back and reflect on what has happened to gain even more value moving forward. Now, I'm a Western astrologer. Today, I'm using the whole house system for this reading. So, if you were born closer to November 22nd, you could benefit from listening to Scorpio's reading. If your birthday's closer to December 21st, you might want to listen to Capricorn. Either way, start with your rising sign. It represents your motivation for living then. Listen to your sun sign. It focuses more on your career and hobbies. And cap things off with your moon sign. It reflects your emotions and your private life. It's a secret gem. And given that we have a full moon in Sagittarius and a new moon in Cancer, I do always find value in listening to my moon sign for the lunations specifically. Now, I'm titling this month for you Debt, Hinders, Closeness. I think I'm going to change it to Fear, Hinders, Closeness. And as I go forward, I think you're going to understand why. The first thing that we'll do is look at the bigger picture transit, which is Pluto Retrograde in Aquarius. And this is happening in the background. I subconsciously believe that it's driving our day-to-day decisions. Then we're going to continue the reading with the quicker moving energy at play for it to all make sense. So starting on May 4th, Pluto went retrograde in Aquarius, and this is going to happen until mid-October. It gives you the opportunity to review and rework the way you communicate and share your ideas. The third house has a lot going on. It's considered a business house. It has a lot to do with contracts and media projects. It also involves vehicles and technology, but it's also neighbors, neighborhoods, local hangouts, and siblings. So some astrologers actually call it the junk drawer of astrology. But since Pluto is connected to your career, your role as a parent, your public reputation, your social status, like married, single, divorced, employer, employee, parent, grandparent, I think that this is a really great time to rebrand yourself, polish up your online profiles and websites. And if you could also rework templates and proposals, especially if you're in sales or marketing. Maybe you're working with a big picture client and it's time to move to the next step of the project. So you're rethinking the relationship, what it costs you, time, money, and energy to reach your milestones for them. This is also a really great time to network if you're looking for more clients or looking for a new job. And since the third house is about local hotspots, I think that happy hours and golf outings, fundraisers, and other ways to rub elbows make sense. Now, Pluto does represent the masses, and this is a 20-year transit. So keep your eyes open for how you can infuse technology into your business model or your marketplace to attract even more clients over the next 2 decades. Okay, now to the major energy at play. The first thing we're going to talk about is Venus moving into Taurus. It started on June 6th. It's going to go all the way until Independence Day, so a 1-month transit. Venus rules over everything that has value. Though this can be money, food, natural resources, art and love, specifically in Taurus. But she specifically has you focused on your 6th house activities. And that's tied to work, your work environment, your coworkers, your health, your wellness, your schedule, even your pets. So this is a great time to get out in nature, whether you like camping or hiking, or maybe you want to beautify your office space or take clients to lunch. So if you do, try to get a table out in the sunshine. Especially with Venus also connected to your 11th house of friendships, professional networks, profits, long-term goals. I think this is definitely about who you know and how you can form better relationships with others that have the potential to bring in more money. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the 9th. We've got our second ingress of the month. This one involves Jupiter And let's get it into Cancer, shall we? Come on, you can do it. Oh, minutes, Kathryn Ann. There. Come on, come on. Bear with, bear with. Finally. Okay, so now Jupiter is moving into Cancer. And Jupiter is about, well, first of all, it's your chart ruler. So wherever Jupiter is where you are. But Jupiter is about wisdom, knowledge, growth, expansion, optimism, good fortune. And when it's in your 8th house, it means that your luck throughout the next year is going to be driven by shared resources and deep emotional bonds. And when I say resources, you know I always mean time, money, and energy, but this house specifically ties to money that you have with other people, other people's money. And that can mean another person, but it can also mean institutions like credit card debt, insurance. It can mean inheritance. And when I say deep emotional bonds, this is like soul level connections, but it's also what scares us. It's our deepest fears. And that can mean fear of intimacy, it can be fear of commitment, it can be the fear of death and mortality. So Jupiter, while it is about good fortune and luck and optimism, it also expands these things. So if Jupiter does trigger a fear, then it can feel like extra frightening. So we do want to be mindful of that, especially since you've got this square here to Saturn and Neptune, which are now in the early degrees of your 5th house of romance and creative projects and children and small business. So, maybe it's a fear about going into debt. Maybe it's a fear about entering into a romantic relationship with someone who has kids or want kids, and maybe you already have them or you don't want them. Maybe this is about, you really want to spend money on, a hobby or etc. But again, it's like you're racking up the credit card debt. So the good news is you've got a trine here to Mars and Leo in your 9th house, which is like Jupiter's home house. And that is about growth and optimism and expansion and wisdom. And Mars is about speed and heat and competitiveness. So in the 9th house, you really could be passionate about learning something new. Learning different cultures, different backgrounds. So maybe this person that you're dating is from a different background, or they do have a different viewpoint when it comes to politics, religion, traditional marriage, having children, all of those things. But Mars is saying, I think you got to go for it, So that's what's happening over the next year for you during the Jupiter transit. And all of this is leading up to the new full moon in Sagittarius. This is your one and only full moon of the year. So it is ruled by Jupiter, but let's get on that moon. And we've got to go back again because this is happening at 21 degrees. And I know this is a whole sign reading and nothing replaces a personal birth chart reading, but I want to get these aspects as accurate as possible for you. Okay, so now here she is, the moon, 21, your moon in your 1st house of self. So, of course, the energy is landing in your 1st house of self. It does include your appearance, your body, your outlook on life, how others see you, how you see them. And since the moon is ruled by Jupiter, the energy is also impacting your home life. And full moons are known for turning points, completions, or endings. It doesn't mean bad. It just means giving way to the new. So over the last 6 months, if you've been working really hard on putting your best foot forward, your spouse, your kids, your parents might really recognize you for your efforts. And maybe you throw a barbecue at home, or maybe you've been working on a major do it yourself project and now that wraps up. This could also represent someone moving in or out of the home, maybe because you've had a change in identity, like you got married, or you entered into a serious relationship. Or you've grown in ways that you no longer identify with your spouse or roommate, and now you want your own space. So, whatever is happening, it's definitely part of your destiny, even if you're feeling the growing pains with the squares to the north node in your 10th house, career of reputation. The south node in your 10th house of career and reputation, and the north node in your 4th house of home and family, real estate, parents, the past. So maybe you have to cut back your hours to spend more time with your family, or you have to work more and it's taking away time from being home. I think you should try to lean into the Mars activity here in Leo. So you see the positive aspect to your 9th house of higher learning and travel, morals, and ethics. So whatever decision you make, it really is going to be for the best because the nodes are involved and those are part of our destiny. Okay, so now let's go to the 15th. Mid-month is when things get a little heated. And that's because Mars on the 15th in Leo is squaring Uranus in Taurus. And they're like both at the final degrees of these signs. So this is really a tipping point. Okay, this is the grand finale. Mars is about speed, heat, aggression, and competitiveness. So it's possible, as gung-ho as you are, to go back to school, to travel abroad, to take a specific stand on politics or organized religion. Mars is also tied to your dating life and your creative projects and your children, as well as your career and your reputation and your role as a parent. So you may feel like you want to do something, but work or kids is preventing you in some way. That said, the real tension is coming from Uranus and Taurus. And Uranus is the planet of innovation or disruption. But when it's activated like this, it can bring sudden and unexpected changes, like overnight. It's at the very end of your 6th house of work, health, wellness, your daily routines, your schedule, pets. So I think that this makes sense. You want to travel, for example, you're going to need to take time off of work. Maybe you're in the middle of a large project and you have to delegate responsibilities to your colleagues. This could have to do with what's happening out in the world. Maybe your coworkers don't share your political viewpoint, and this is causing tension in the office, so much so that you're like considering making a move. And since Uranus rules Aquarius in your 3rd house of communications and short trips and contracts, that makes sense. So are you negotiating something? Maybe instead of a salary, you want to have more creative freedom that gives you time to travel. Maybe you're learning a new system, like tech system at the office, that's completely different from what you've always done. And you're being pushed to change in order to keep up with the tech, like using an AI assistant to track your mileage or to create estimates, for example. You probably know it's for the best, but it's annoying. Okay, also on the 15th, your chart ruler Jupiter is squaring Saturn in Aries. Now, this is the 3rd and final square. So we need to think back to last August, like the 3rd week of August last year, and Christmas Eve. What was happening during those times? This is kind of a repeat. Now, yes, Jupiter is now in Cancer, So the focus is more on your joint resources and intimacy. This has to do with other people's money. We've already talked about it: credit card debt, insurance, mortgages, taxes, as well as any fears you may have around trust, debt, death. And since you are Jupiter, your body and your identity, as well as your home life, are getting checked. So maybe you're gaining weight because a home matter is stressing you out, or debates about shared finances are turning into arguments at home. Saturn represents limitations and discipline and restrictions and rules and karma. And Saturn in Aries is forcing you to be more disciplined about these fifth house elements right now. So that could be your dating life, it could be hobbies, it could be children. So maybe you're not on the same page as the person you're dating about how much you're spending in these areas, or you're concerned about accumulating too much debt because of these fifth house themes. Maybe you're trying to sell your home and there's no buyers on the market, or you're not getting the offers that you thought you were going to get, or you're refinancing your mortgage and you're hitting a wall. Saturn also rules your third house of communications and your second house of personal finances. So if you are at odds with someone about who's paying for what, the square might force you to have a sit down and get firm about your budget. Okay, that's all happening on the 15th. So now we're going to move the wheel to the 18th, and it's a very similar setup, but now we're focused on Neptune. This is when Jupiter squares Neptune in Aries. So we've got other people's money tied to your body and your identity and your home life, creating tension in your personal life, which is impacting your money and messing with your communications. So if you've been waiting for approval on a loan or a lower credit card interest rate, you may get a call or email that is yet another delay, or like you don't get the call or email that you've been expecting. Neptune is really confusing. So I don't think that this is a time to count chickens before they've hatched. The energy will pass soon, but for now, I think it's just about reading the fine print and keep negotiating. I don't think it's best to sign contracts or make any major purchases on this day. Okay, now let's move to some of the sweeter days of the month. Yay, involving Jupiter. And this is when Jupiter forms a Cazimi with the sun, amplifying its energy. And again, you are Jupiter, so you are shining bright. Some astrologers actually call this day the day of miracles, right? Because Jupiter is the planet of good luck and the sun is just like bursting that wide open. So that's good. The good luck is often associated with your home life. We know that. And Jupiter in Cancer is connected to your shared resources and your soul level bonds. And the sun is how we shine. For you, it's influencing your education, your travel, and your beliefs. So now the loan may be approved, or you get the zero interest credit card and you can purchase the plane tickets or pay for tuition. So just get through those trickier days of the month and look forward to the 24th. So that said, Saturn and Neptune are still at play here in the square. And that's why it's like there's a discrepancy about if this is the luckiest day of the year. I mean, like technically it is, but when you've got the squares like this, it's like, So even if you do put the trip or education on your credit card, you got to read the fine print. You want to avoid balloon payments. Be mindful of any other responsibilities that come with this like explosive expansion. Okay? Now, your last major event of the month is going to be the new moon in Cancer. It's happening at 4 degrees, and that's happening on the 25th. So, new moons are fresh starts. And over the next 6 months, I think you should be setting intentions around paying off debt or consolidating your insurance. The eighth house also deals with inheritances, so you could be focused on closing out an estate or working on a will or trust to set the next generation up for success. Listen, none of this is going to be resolved overnight, but again, you've got 6 months to put a plan in motion. So, yes, you've got the squares to Saturn and Neptune in your fifth house of romance, dating, creative projects, small business, and children. So you may have to cut back and stick to a budget. But there's also a sextile to Mars in your 10th house of career, parenting, public recognition, and legacy. So you're either making more money that is helping you pay down debt, you're working through intimacy issues and improving your public image or your marriage, or the trust you're setting up is really creating a legacy for your kids, right? It's hard to talk about death, but if that's the case, you're doing the right thing. And this is taxing work, pun intended, 8th house. But if you stick with it, you're going to really have some tangible results to celebrate by the holidays. So I hope that was helpful, Sagittarius. Have a beautiful June.
If you found value in your forecast, please pay it forward by subscribing to the channel, posting a comment, and clicking on the notification bell. Transcripts are posted on astrocoachkate.com, where you can find all the ways to train with me and book a free discovery call.